Nice to be live here on Sunday afternoon at the BSJ event. Or I say BSJ event, the BSJ Sign Making Village. I'll claim it as our event. But, John's been kind enough to join us on stage, and I thought it would be interesting as the largest sign franchise in the UK to find a little bit more about John and probably start with, how did you come to join Science Express? How did they find you?
Well, first of all, thanks ever so much for inviting us here today. How did I come to join Science Express? Well, my background is accountancy, so I started off in practice many years ago, and decided that I got frustrated because you couldn't influence anything, so decided to move into industry and had some time in hospitality, waste management, and airlines. And unfortunately got made redundant twice. So I was about to step out of the business, out of the industry, and a friend of mine who was in recruitment said, "Will you go and see these guys? They're fantastic guys, but just can't find the right person for them." So probably the most relaxed interview ever, because I wasn't really, what do I would say, keen on, I wasn't really desperate for the job, if that makes sense. But I had the most amazing interview with yourself and David and Frank, and I walked out of the business, rang my friend up and said, "I want the job." So I came in as the company accountant 22 years ago.
Well, I have to be honest here. The fact is, I was involved with Science Express for close on 30 years, so I do have a little bit of inside knowledge on you, John. But I'll say from my perspective, the person that you stepped in to help in their role as they stepped away was a gentleman called Frank Eliel. And obviously a very different character when you think about a traditional accounting person. How did you follow on from that individual, to actually to keep the group aligned, if you like?
I think the honest answer is I didn't, to start off with, and I think very quickly you realize you have to build relationships. So franchising was completely new to me. And I was looking at David and Frank and trying to get the best out of both of them, and obviously working very closely with Frank. And those early days, it was largely about dealing with franchisees that might be having a bit of a cash flow blip. So it was very, could get a little bit heated at times, shall we say. But very quickly, you have to realize that these are individuals, these are business people, these are people that are having a good time, or they're having a little bit of a challenge. And therefore, you have to have some empathy, and you'll get far more if you build relationships and understand their business and how you can support them, rather than maybe being a little bit more draconian. I think that's where Frank really helped. That he always said, just put yourself in their shoes, work with them, and they'll work with you.
And again, from my perspective, it's unusual to work with someone who's looking after the company's money. I'll put it that way. Normally, accountancy is very black and white. It's either a yes or a no. So did you have to kind of change from your way of thinking? Because Frank was never, oh, yes or no. Frank was unusual and he's a bit of an ideas man. Was that a stretch for you, or was that a role you felt comfortable coming into?
Um, I think it was a stretch to start off with, because my background with previous companies, it was far more black and white. We didn't have the relationships with franchisees. You've got 60 odd clients at that time. And therefore very quickly you have to mold yourself into the person you need to be to get the best out of franchisees. And that wasn't my natural skill set. So no, I think working with people like yourself and Frank, very quickly they help mentor you. I'm still grateful to this day to have some great mentors throughout my career, and some of the best mentors at Science Express. So you learn from the best.
Well, I feel very lucky as well. My journey through the sign trade, I've witnessed and been and worked with some very kind people who are prepared to share information. Funnily enough, the trade association has been exactly the same. We're made up of business owners who prepared to share information, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is quite unusual, because people are very happy to share the nice glossy stuff. It's the things that are maybe a little bit harder to deal with. But your transition has not only gone from you came in as and built into the FD role. You then stepped from the FD role into the managing director role. So how was that transition? Because that's quite a big change as well for an individual.
Yeah, I think there's some transferable skills, shall we say? And I think at that time I understood the value of relationships and trust, so I could bring that with me. I think the difficult thing is stepping back from what you know. So I was still wanted to know the numbers. I still was very involved in the day to day of Science Express, but I realised that as an MD, you needed to bring much more to the party. Um, I certainly wanted to carry on the journey that David and Frank had set up. You had your time as MD, and I want to carry on that legacy and take it on. I think there were things that I wanted to try and achieve in my tenure, and we're going through that now. Um, yeah, and again, there was always support. There was always David in the background. There's always Frank in the background, Jurgen in the background. People I've met over the years through business, they're all in the background to help. And I have had one or two conversations when things haven't quite gone to plan, and you just need to talk it through with someone and just reset and get some real perspective on actually what the problem is and how you deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I, I wholeheartedly agree with you because obviously I took the role on from an MD who was very much an MD of the 80s, if that made sense, where an MD was used to telling somebody what to do and they did it. I stepped into the role and it was very much, I felt I was an advisor to people. I jokingly, and I still use the phrase now, glorified agony aunts. So you're actually sharing information, you're trying to help people through a process. And I suppose because I was quite hands on, that was a natural fit for me to do that. And obviously, but you then had to shape it as you took over the role from me. So
I know we used to laugh about the agony uncle bit, and I totally get it now. It's I think I've said it before. It's about relationships and it's about trust, and it's about franchisees being willing to open up to you as well. Um, Not everything will be going to plan sometimes, and you need franchisees to tell you in a timely fashion before it's too late to get to them and try and help them. I've built relationships up with franchisees that mean that they'll talk to me about non-work related issues because they just need an outlet. They need someone to talk to. They see you as a confidant and as a friend as much as the franchisor, and that works very well for us. It just means that we can understand where they're at, and we can, if you need one or two direct conversations, and again, if you just need to be honest with them, it's far easier when you've built those sort of relationships.
I think that's right. It's unusual the fact that you're building friendships. Isn't just about a business relationship. This is that we're in this together, guys. And I totally get that. And I doff my cap to you, Sarah, on that one. I think I'd probably like to touch on now is that, the franchise model, when it was launched in the UK, and I'm going right the way back to 1989, we were probably viewed as all the gear, no idea. So, we had business owners that had money to buy equipment that maybe traditional sign companies couldn't afford. My take on it was slightly different. And I used to put myself in front of other sign owners to explain, no, we're just the same as you. We employ people who are time served, time skilled. We have exactly the same issues as you, but the model we have probably helps us. Do you want to touch a little bit maybe on the model, the training that you guys give, the facilities that they can tap into? Maybe there's something other sign companies could learn.
I think you're right. The model, whether it's under Signs Express or whether it's an independent sign company, they're pretty much the same. We've got the same kit, the same type of customers, the same products. I think with Signs Express, and certainly from a franchising perspective, the model it just gives you support. So I think business can be a lonely place at times, and I think it's great when you have people you can talk to about an opportunity or about something that's not going quite right. And I think that when you come into Signs Express, you don't necessarily have to have that signage background either, because the support and the knowledge is there with you. And it's not just about from us as a franchisor; it's within the network. I've got 60 franchisees with I dread to think how many years knowledge, hundreds, thousands of years knowledge that people can tap into. And so you de-risk it somewhat by coming into the business with we cover our functional pillars. So whether it's sales, marketing, operations, HR, IT, there's always something, or so, there's always an expert back in Norwich who can come and see you and spend that time and can um, help you navigate that bear trap that might be there.
So, so as you kind of came into the role, obviously, if I say you wanted to stamp your mark on the business, how do you? Is there anything particularly that you're proud about that you've developed under your stewardship as you came into the business?
Um, yeah, I think we're currently still going through it. As I said, I'm an accountant by profession, so I'm a numbers man, and I like the data, and I like to analyze it, and I like to see what it's telling me, and I also like to try and improve it. And I like to improve it, just those little incremental improvements, whether a couple of percentage on net profit, a couple of percentage off cost of sales, a couple of percentage on the top line. So I was always very keen to use the data to support franchisees and demonstrate to them that doing something different, a little bit of change will benefit them. So I think where I'm at right now with my colleagues back at the Franchise Support Centre is all around being able to capture that data and use it in a tangible way, in a valuable way. So we're currently going through a change to our main operating system. So we're moving from Clarity to Corebridge. That gives us massive potential to analyze the data and use the data. We have an insight portal as well. So every franchisee can log on that. They can see the sales. They can see the order intake, the conversion rates. It's all the data. We can just go and work with them.
Just ask you one question? So,
Yeah.
is it just the franchisees, or is it their key team members that can access that as well?
It's the key team members as well. So when it comes to the operating system, then the majority of their teams, from sales through to production, will have access to that. The Insight portal, they can see as well. We have, over the last 5 years or so, we've actually tried to encourage more team members, more staff to get involved in the business, so they feel valued in the business. The convention, we've opened that up to team members, to center manager, production managers, sales managers. Our weekly email that used to go to franchisee now goes to all the team. We want to bring those guys on. And also franchisees can be busy, they can miss things. And therefore, if the team that are making some of those decisions understand that there's a deal on a certain vinyl, or there's some training that can be had, then they tend to pick up on it.
The other thing I was going to add about that, and this might sound a little bit mercenary, is the fact that when traditional sign companies, the owner comes to the end of their tenure, it's quite hard to sell a standalone business. If your staff are educated in the process that it goes through, is there a natural succession plan being created by this?
What, in terms of like MBOs?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've I think for the last 8 or 9 years now, we've seen a big increase in MBOs. It was something that the previous directors didn't really didn't really value. I suppose they wanted to bring new franchisees in. There was always a challenge with MBOs financially, but we've seen some great success. And I've worked with production managers, center managers that have seen the opportunity within the business, the potential, but they just haven't been able to get their hands on it. And now that they have through an MBO, they've just taken it to another level. So I'm a huge advocate of management buyouts with the team members. We also get to know the team member very early on. So we go through a franchise process to bring the right person on board. Now, I can tick a lot of those. There's a lot of green ticks in the box before we even get to that formal stage, because I've known them for a number of years.
Well, again, I suppose for me seeing on some of the judging panels now for the Sign Awards, I'm seeing stuff coming through from that MBO, Central Lancs as a prime example, Slough management buyout as well. It is, for me, it's lovely to see these guys evolve and, if I can even say, take the business on to the next level, which is no mean feat. They were successful businesses in the first place.
I agree. I think there's always a nervousness with MBOs that they can actually transition into business owner. And I think that's part of our job, to tell them how good they are. Sometimes they don't quite understand that they have they have all the skill set, and they need to believe in themselves. But also being part of that franchise means that if they are unsure about, I'm not really connected to my numbers, well, there's someone who can help you
Yep.
with that. Or I'm not really connected with social media nowadays. Well, there's someone to help you. So again, it de-risks their decision somewhat to step up into business ownership.
And that's quite a neat segue into franchisee collaboration, because that's one of the things I've noticed maybe over this last year and a half. Your social media presence seems to become more pronounced. Can I put it that way? Is that been easy, or is that really been kind of trying to, you know, you have some people of a certain age, and I'll put myself in that, who maybe don't find it natural to share that type of
I
thing.
I totally agree. I think if I go back to my early days with Science Express, we were sitting there signing off yellow pages adverts. That was the advertising that you needed to do. Few networking events, and that was it.
And what was wrong with that?
But yeah, look, certainly the marketing landscape has changed hugely over my time at Science Express, and it's very difficult when you are used to just a yellow pages advert to now be present and visible and trustworthy and personable and all of those things on LinkedIn. And it is a constant. You constantly got to be there to compete with your competitors because they're doing it. So it has been challenging for some, but then you see others within Science Express that have embraced it. And I look out for their posts daily, weekly, because I think they're phenomenal, and it just shows their expertise and their character. And again, it just brings what they do to life a little bit more.
Well, kind of my mantra, people by people, and this is a great
Exactly.
shop
Yeah.
window, isn't it? I mean, the individual messaging, do you help them, or do you give them a framework to work in? Is that part of it?
If they want to, yes. So we'll as part of the franchise support, then we'll have central campaigns. So we'll run that for them, and then we'll give them guidance on how to post on social media, what to say on social media, some of the templates for social media. Some will call us and ask for help, and that's perfectly fine. We've got a marketing team there that are there to help and support, and some just do it off their own back. I find it challenging. I think you always think that whatever you say is going to be questioned. That's just not the case. And um, I encourage anyone, as I did at convention, I stood up in front of everyone and said, I need to encourage you guys to get on social media more because you do some amazing stuff. You're a great bunch of people. To tell everyone, tell your competition how good you are, tell your customers how good you are, tell each other how good you are. And I think once you get one or two people that are leading the way, others within the network tend to follow.
I'm I'm going to throw this one back at you. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on about Science Express that maybe we haven't covered in our kind of 15, 20 minutes?
Um, I think it's just the models that you asked me about, things under my tenure. Um, I think we now realize that we want to see more people coming into the signage sector. That I want to have relationships with our key suppliers, with you guys. I come from a different background, but I've grown to love signage and graphics. I may not be at the cutting edge of it, but
You do understand you never ever get away. I'm
well,
sure.
I think I'm here for life now after 22 years. Um, but we understand that we need to develop and we need to shift our focus. So when it comes to our model, it's still the same. It's still printer, plotter, laminator. It's still the same product. It's still the same customer base. But it's the ability to encourage more people to come into it. So we have a rebrand and conversion model that we're now pushing. We're now getting some momentum behind that. We're getting some inquiries. So whether you're an existing sign company, you mentioned earlier on, it's sometimes difficult to sell an independent sign company. Um, we can then work with you
You're
to
calling that conversion?
that's conversion.
Yep.
Um, so you can come and talk to us, and we will find you can just convert it to a Science Express, and then you can benefit from brand reputation, key supplier discounts, and the support of us and the support of the network. Um, the other one is where you again when you want to sell, we can go out and try and find you a buyer. And then when that buyer comes in, that's then rebranded to a Signs Express.
Okay.
So either move from John Bean Signs to Signs Express wherever, or come in and sell your business.
Is that relatively new?
Yes. So we've been talking about it for the last 6 months. We've just been working on the collateral. Again, we spend a lot of time making sure that this has got legs before we launch it. But the start of 2026 is our big push. So we've now got some more resource behind it in-house to push it. As I said, we've now got 2 or 3 conversations going with people that we've met. We're now pushing more on social. So it's got some traction pretty early on. I'm quietly confident we'll get more and more people inquiring about what that looks like for them.
Okay. And then you also had, I assume this is still in place, a spoken hub model?
Yeah. So we get a lot more franchisees come on board now, and they want to look at their growth opportunities. And in the past, it was your territory. So you have a plot of land, that's where you trade in. But a lot of people come and say, well, what's the next step for me? So one of the things we looked at was what we call our hub and spoke model, where you have your hub, which is where your existing business in, but you can buy a neighboring territory. We treat that as a spoke. Now you can go and service that territory, but we don't want you to have additional overhead and running costs, such as a unit. So your costs for that spoke probably are a person to go and maximize the opportunities in that territory, possibly another person in production as sales pick up.
Yeah.
But it's a way to increase your revenue and ultimately your profit by taking on a hub and spoke model. And it's all about profit. As I said, I'm a numbers man. If I go and talk to a franchisee, I don't talk about vinyl or substrates or inks. I'm straight into the numbers. What profit do you want to make? Are we making it? What are things telling us?
Oh, brilliant. Well, again, really, really enlightening. And I really appreciate that. I'm going to give you one last question.
Go on.
And that will be, what advice would you give a young John Bean if you had the chance to meet yourself shortly after you started this journey?
Well, smooth off the rough edges. I think it comes back to relationships. I stood on a few bear traps in the early days. Thankfully, I have a joke with those franchisees now because we crossed swords early on. But just understand that you are there to support people. We're a support function. We support, mentor, coach, guide, and understand that there are good times and there are not such good times. And you have to have empathy with individuals. You have to understand what's needed to get them through that blip. And they are just blips most of the time. And again, if you can understand and help a franchise, it can only strengthen that relationship and that trust.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Good stuff. They're really good. I'm trying my best to listen. I keep talking to you, but I can listen back to it afterwards. Thanks so much for your time.
Great.
Brilliant. Well done.
Thank you, Jonathan.
No, thanks, Greg.
Yay. Thank you very much.
No,
Well done.
was that okay?
That was good. I think it was good.